Hello everyone, it's Marcy, and I'm here to make envelopes for the August Assembly Line Junk Journal Challenge hosted by DearJulieJulie. And what am I doing? Okay, these are the papers I'll be using for my envelopes. I've got these three. These will become coin envelopes. These will become like greeting card size envelopes, and these will become policy envelopes. So these are the bases for each of my envelopes. And what I'm going to do, this part of it is going to be quite the assembly line process. So I'm going to kind of show you and start on them, then I'll pause the video, wait for everything to be done, then come back for the next step. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use some gesso, and I'm going to dry brush a little bit of gesso onto my envelopes. Now when I say dry brush, I take my brush and I do dip it in water to sort of prime the brush, but then just using a paper towel, I get out as much of that water as possible. So it's not, for me, it's not a complete dry brush. Then I'm just getting little bits of gesso, and I don't need it. I'm not trying to cover the entirety of the paper. I will be using distress inks, distress oxides, or a combination of both on this. And this will just, the inks pick up a little differently where the gesso is. So I'm just lightly gessoing, and I am going to do that on both sides. Like I said, it doesn't have to be neat, it doesn't have to be pretty, not trying to cover the entirety of the paper. I just want the inks to pick up. It gives more variation in the inks as they go on the paper. So I'm going to do this to all 9 pieces of paper, and then I will be back for the next step. Okay, I have my papers gessoed, and it's time to blot some ink on them. I don't really have, I wish I had crushed olive, but I don't have that color. So I'm going to be using some combination of peeled paint and old paper. We'll see how this does. And I've already blotted them all with some frayed burlap. And let that dry a little bit so you can see how it's got the frayed burlap blotted on there. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to do some crushed olive. And again, you don't have to cover every speck of paper. It's not necessary. Just trying to get some color on there. And when the crushed olive has had a moment, or not the crushed olive, because I don't have crushed olive. When the peeled paint has had a moment to dry, then I'm going to go back with wild honey and be putting that on as well. Okay, so I got the color applied to all of my envelope papers, and I went ahead and made the envelopes, cut them out, and glued them. So this is what they look like so far. These are the little coin envelopes. And the next thing I'm going to add to them is some stamping. And I'm just going to do random stamping of some text. And I'm using Ranger Archival ink in Coffee. Try to be sure I don't get all the same thing everywhere. And I'm going to do some on the reverse side as well. And I'm even going to do a little bit on the inside, just because I don't know for certain yet how I'll be using the envelopes. So I'm going to do that to all of my envelopes, and then I'll be back and start applying some napkin to them. Okay, so I've got my envelopes, the random text stamping on my envelopes now, and I am ready to begin adding napkin to each of my envelopes. And I've got 3 different napkins. Got this one that I'll be using on the tall policy envelopes, and this one that I will be using on the little coin envelopes, and this one that I'll be using on the card envelopes. So I've got, get stuff moved out of the way. I've got some water and my water brush, and I've got my Mod Podge. So trying to figure out where I want to start. I'll just start right here, and I'm just gonna loosely watermark around this corner sunflower, and try to take it off the rest of the napkin. Okay. So that'll work. I'm going to go ahead and take the very edges off. So that I don't have some edges with the torn look and others being perfectly straight. There we go. Apparently I wasn't actually getting it wet. All right. Let's get my little papers out of the way. Get my Mod Podge open. Get my napkin all laid down, and you can see over on the left hand side I've got some overhang there, and that's fine. I'll take care of that in a bit. But there you go. So I'm going to do that on all of my envelopes and let that dry, and then I will be back. Okay, my napkins are all dry, and now I'm going to take my nail file, and I'm going to lightly go over my napkin. And I'm not trying to necessarily completely smooth the napkin. I can also use it to get rid of little bits that I didn't get cut away. But I do like going especially around the edges, because I really want my napkin to become part of the envelope as opposed to being something on top of the envelope. That's just my preferred way. So I've got that done. And start on the inside. Now I'm just going to ink around all my edges a little bit. And when I've got this done, what will I have? I have my base paper, on top of which I have gesso, and then on top of that I've got distress inks, and I've got stamping, and then I've got my napkin. So, how many things was that? Gesso, distress ink, stamping. So four items on top of my base layer. So, technically, these should be done. So that's how I finish that off. And here are the ones I went ahead and did some ahead of time. So there's my coin envelopes. And my card envelopes. And my policy envelopes. So I'm really pleased with the way those came out. And at this moment, I think I've met the technicalities of the challenge. 3 or more items for embellishing. So the paper as my base, the gesso, the inks, the stamping, and the napkin. My problem with it is there is a little more that I want to do with it, like on the card envelopes. I'd actually like to put canceled postage up here. Don't really know what specifically I want to do with the coin envelopes or the policy envelopes, but I know I'd like to do that for those three, but I don't know that I necessarily want stamps on these others. And so I don't know if I'm strictly following the rules, but I'm saying I have 4 embellishments on top of the paper to make the envelopes. So for the challenge, I'm calling this good. And what I may have to do to stay within the confines of the challenge is put these in my journals and then go back afterwards and add to them what I want. So, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, those are my envelopes. 9 envelopes for the challenge. And that's it for today. So until I see you again, please be safe, stay healthy, and happy crafting, everyone. Bye-bye.